The crypto giant is still sleeping, but I have a feeling it's going to wake up very soon. And when it does, we will see massive amounts of money flow into the crypto market. And that is the specific moment I'm looking for as an investor. Today we have on Paul, who is our favorite price analysis expert, and we're going to look at the markets as well as some viewer suggestions from last week's video. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a real investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. You can do that as easily as liking this video and subscribing with the all notifications bell enabled. Special note, we're not financial advisors. We are crypto investors ourselves. Paul is an investor in many things, even outside of crypto. Also note that I do own or plan to own most of what I talk about on this channel that I bring up. I don't talk about crypto projects or bring on the founders on projects that I don't believe in. Special thanks to our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. Now make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. Let's welcome Paul from DeFinity.
Hi, it's great to be here. The weeks are flying by and the market's going sideways, but I totally agree. I think we're going to see a breakout and it's going to get very interesting very quick.
Yes, I'm loving what you were showing us on one of the altcoin charts specifically that's showing some really good patterns. In fact, there's a couple that are showing this exact same pattern. And it looks like the sleeping giant may awake. Now, it probably doesn't feel like that if you've been in crypto because it seems like nothing is happening. And all of a sudden, boom, out of nowhere. And it's not completely out of nowhere. It's just the momentum has been building. Meanwhile, our emotions get played with by the market trading sideways, going up a little bit, going down a lot more. And that's what building momentum looks like. And then that momentum hits. We're going to show some charts that suggest that we're really close to that. So thanks for joining us, Paul. I look forward to this episode every week. It's actually one of my favorite episodes of the week because I love your take on things.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I really enjoy it. It's always great to be here. It's always great to hear what you have to say about the coins as well and viewer picks. So thank you so much. So yeah, I mean, if we start with the chart of the Bitcoin, as you can see, it's still going sideways, oscillating above and below this 42,000 level. And what can we say? It's been doing this for quite some time now, most of this year. So no wonder there are people who are just getting a little bit tired of it. And that's what markets do. They wear you down. That's why you have to be really patient. And like you say, at some point we'll get the breakout signal. I'm hoping that it won't be a breakout to the downside, mainly because the evidence still points to the upside. We're still range trading. There was a lot of bearish information that came in around this down leg, and that proved to be wrong. So the fact that the markets went sideways, I felt justified a more positive outlook. We traded up to the 200-day moving average, which capped the move. And so since then, it's just gone sideways. Now, signals that tell us that perhaps things aren't going to be breaking out to the positive side is if it breaks this support line that comes in, this yellow support line. And if it breaks that, there's still a level below it, which is this blue line. That's kind of like the final line in the sand. If it takes that out, we could be looking at a move back below 28,000. Now, I don't think that that's what will happen, but I have to be aware that my bullish, slightly biased view to the upside could be wrong. But I'm not just taking a bullish view just for the sake of it. I think it's justified at this moment in time. And one of the things that we looked at last week that is started to play out quite nicely is a reversal pattern in Polkadot. So we've had this downward trend. We've got this left shoulder ahead and a right shoulder that's forming. So last week we were here and I was saying if it can hold into this level around 16 and then start to go up, it will be completing this right shoulder, but it still needs to take out this 23 and a half level, because that's where the two, well, look at this resistance. It's amazing. You got 23 and a half, which was here, and acted as support as well. So if it gets through that to the upside, I think that's a really positive sign. Now, you might wonder, well, why am I looking at something that's so off the beaten track? Why am I looking at the majors? Well, of course, I look at both, but sometimes you can pick up something technically that's clearer in something that's off the beaten track a little bit. and it gives you a clearer technical position than if we go back to Bitcoin. It's not really giving much of a technical signal at the moment because the situation is range bound. So it could go down back up again, which is actually what it's doing. It's not forming a very clean inverse head and shoulders compared to the Polkadot chart. So that's why I think I will be biased towards the upside. And I think the charts are still looking very interesting.
Wonder if we factored out the US dollar, because that's Bitcoin versus the US dollar. If on the Bitcoin chart we factored that out, it might actually look a little bit cleaner because the US dollar is kind of devaluing itself. And so, yeah.
I mean, the dollar is very, very strong at the moment. Yields are going up in America, and at what we call 10-year yields, and the long end of the market is rising, and also what we call the short end, which is 2-year money, that's moving up as well very aggressively. So that's something that's happening elsewhere as well, and we've seen a bit of the fallout with some of the internet stocks. So you might have seen Netflix go down very aggressively. There's two reasons I think for that. One is that the end of the pandemic is not great, and two, if they've got any company that's got a lot of debt, this is not what they want to see because their debt becomes more expensive, and so the cost of money does affect decisions. It also affects where you can invest your funds. So basically, the cost of money going up is not a particularly positive thing. But inflation, I think, inflation is still going to run hot, and I don't think they're going to raise interest rates quick enough. So my own view is that that we're going to be in a situation where the Fed will be behind the curve, and I think that is a positive for the crypto market. So that's why overall I'm still bullish.
It'd be interesting to see how this plays out. We can't say that we know exactly how this plays out, and we're making probability guesses. As investors, that's all you have is probability guesses because we don't know the future. But there's competing interests, right? In that likely interest rates are going to continue to go up because inflation is so high, and it's a smart way for the Federal Reserve to help curb or limit that inflation. But as the interest rates go up, that affects how much corporations are paying for their money. And so it makes their returns go down, which usually then makes the stock market go down tremendously, especially as the yields continue to go up or the interest rates continue to go up. It usually hurts the stock market. So the question is, as the stock market falls, will a lot of that money then transfer into crypto?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it could rotate. It could rotate out and into crypto. That is definitely something that can happen. But I think the inflationary story is the one that will drive this. So stocks haven't actually broadly gone down. They've gone sideways because an inflationary market is one where you have to start hedging yourself, because if everything's going up, then you've got to spend your money. If you're spending your money, you have to put it in the stock market. Well, you don't have to, but you can put it in the stock market.
You want to hold it in assets rather than dollars.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're seeing the cost of everything going up, and companies will charge more for their products, and therefore you have a kind of hedge against that. So it means if it gets out of control, which it could do, because even though they're raising interest rates, they're not raising them fast enough. Then, and there's some people who think we may even go to a period of hyperinflation. Now, I'm not quite sure about that yet, but I do think this is going to be an intractable problem, and therefore we've got to look as to where we could put our money. And so, I think having some in crypto is a very good hedge. You know, even if you're wrong about it, having a small percentage would make sense.
Yeah, there's these multiple pressures, and I think they add up to a massive bull run, which there's a lot of reasons why Bitcoin has a massive run every 4 years. It hasn't really had that this cycle yet, and it's due for that anyway. But if as interest rates rise, people get a little bit jittery about the stock market and crypto starts doing well, say Bitcoin goes over 100,000, there's going to be a lot of pressure on people to put more of their assets in crypto, and could even cause a super cycle within crypto, which would be a massive, massive run. Now, just historically, if we look back at how much Bitcoin's increased every cycle from every 4 years, Bitcoin should go about 150,000 to 220,000 likely, and these are just likely numbers. But if we do hit a super cycle, it could far exceed that. Now, am I betting on that? No. If Bitcoin goes to 150 to 220,000, I'm very, very happy. That usually then takes a lot of the altcoins to higher multiples of returns, which is where I'm mostly positioned, is in the higher risk altcoins, because I do believe the coming 4 to 6 months are very, very bullish for crypto, even though it can be exhausting being here, waiting for it to take off, because it's been trading sideways and somewhat downwards since late October, November. And that can be frustrating, but it is always the same frustration that happens before the massive runs. I've been in crypto for 4.5 years. I've experienced these kind of patterns multiple times. And about the point that you're frustrated to exhaustion, if you're paying attention every day, that's it doesn't quite run yet. It then kicks you a few more times while you're down, then it runs. And that tends to be what happens emotionally with this. And so it's these massive runs, or I call it the rains coming in, that creates massive wealth. And that's why I buy during these periods, when I call it boring, like the price action is boring. Seems like nothing is going on. Fundamentally, I look for solid projects. I buy during that time period. Wait for the rains to come in. I'm not looking for a 1.5x gain. I'm looking for much more than that when I take the majority of my profits. And I call that when the rains come in. And then I cash out. I just released a video on one of the tokens we're going to be talking about today. One of the viewers suggested, and put it in things that can earn some yield while I wait for the market to get cheap again.
Cool. So should we go across to the
Yeah, let's jump in. There's some great viewer picks. And if you're looking to make some suggestions for us to look at next week, would you put them in the comments section? If there's a chat to the right, don't put them in there, because that won't actually be saved. Put them in the actual comment section below. And especially if you can write what you like about them and why you like them, that really, really helps, rather than just the ticker symbol for them. And we'll only look at 2 per person. So just pick your favorite 2 that you want us to look at. All right. Why don't we take a look at RUNE, or Thorchain?
Yeah. So here we have the chart here. So I'm sure that we've looked at this before, and
Yes.
I think we talked about it around this area here. And if I'm right, I think I was saying that traditionally that would have been seen as a top, like a big double top formation. If I switch over to a weekly chart, you'll see what I mean. So that looks like a double top, but there was something about it instinctively that just didn't look right, and we thought it would just continue going sideways and have a bounce from here, which is exactly what it's done. Now it's not out of the woods yet, because it does need to clear this high at 18 and just above. So there's 2 levels of resistance at 18 and just over 20, so 21. But it's still doing okay. So as long as it's holding in this range, it's kind of in a holding pattern before it breaks, I think, to the upside, because it had a good chance to go down and it didn't want to. So I think the breakout direction will be higher. This is still a nice trend. So the trend is still bullish here. And until it fails below this 3.5, I know these percentage terms are very big, but these are the important technical levels. As long as it's above that area, then I think the path will be to the upside. So it's a very, very interesting chart, this one. Now, if it started to come down, that could potentially be a triple top. I wouldn't like it to approach anywhere near this 3.5. So given this leg, I don't mind a little consolidation. So if we zoom in, we can see it's moved up, come down, moved up again, come down. That's okay. So it can consolidate around here. But I would like to see it break higher from here and not come anywhere back into this 4.5 zone, because this is a danger zone for it. If it's coming back to this level again, I would be a little bit concerned. But for the moment, it's doing very well, performing very well.
So if you had some funds set to the side, would this be a wait for you? Would this be a buy? Would this be a sell?
I wouldn't. I would be happy to hold it. So if I had to make a decision here, I would buy it
Okay.
and just hold on that position. So I like to think that if I can't touch it for, say, the position for 2 or 3 months or something, and I'm not going to look at it again for a while, then I'd think, well, I wouldn't mind holding on to that. So yeah, so I'd buy it.
Let me share some details on. Looking at CoinGecko, some details on it that I like. So 60% of their total token supply is in circulation. I like to see that because that means there's not tons of additional tokens that can come into circulation and be dumped on the market. There is still some, 40%, but I think some of these tokens are paid to validators. And so probably this project's been out there for quite a while now. Probably a lot of their pre-sale tokens or other things have entered the market, and there won't be as much pressure from that. I do like this one a lot. I'm a big fan of trustless bridges, and there's 2 projects that have really solid trustless bridge systems, in my opinion. That's OneChain, who is one of our strategic partners, and also Thorchain. And what this project really does is it creates a decentralized backend that centralized front ends can connect to. So it's a way of allowing liquidity for money to be traded, or tokens, altcoins, and other cryptos to be traded in a trustless way that front ends can eventually plug into. And so this can run their matching engines and everything. And so it's a decentralized way of handling this. And in case governments of the world start shutting down all the centralized exchanges, actually this back end wouldn't be able to be shut down. And then anybody could set up a website and connect to it and allow trading everywhere. It's pretty cool tech and what they're doing. So RUNE, I'm a big fan of. For me, it's actually a wait. Now, I did pick up a bunch of this during this downturn here in July. And I like buying when it's boring, and it's got this descending wedge, or not descending, but this descending line coming down here. And it's right about the middle of that pattern. And so for me, if it breaks out of that pattern, I'm going to add some more to the position. And if it comes down near the bottom or anywhere near the bottom, I'd be really happy to add more in, because I like this project a lot. And I believe in what they're doing, and the fundamentals behind it I really, really like. So I tend to hold for longer periods, anywhere from 1 month to 2 years, sometimes even longer. And I buy projects that I think provide some good solutions. I hold them longer term. So yeah, good, great suggestion from our viewers. Loved your analysis, Paul. Why don't we take a look at Ultra? We've reviewed this a number of times.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so this one again is very interesting, because we have this triangular constriction that needs to resolve. Now, usually this is a bullish setup, and I think it will be, but we do have to wait for a bit more confirmation. But what is a triangle? A triangle is a consolidation phase before the market breaks in the main direction of trend. So what is the main direction of trend? It's upwards. And therefore, I would expect this to resolve to a break to the upside. So if you look at the highs and the lows, they're constricting. They're getting closer and closer together. And that's why obviously it's called a triangular constriction, but it's also why we have to wait for the breakout. Now, if I was forced to take a position, I would say buy, because the bias is to the upside. But what you should really do in terms of discipline is wait for a key level to break out, and that would be around here. So some really good resistance, and that's also the trigger point from this resistance line. So around 135, we should get confirmation, if it can break that the market is moving higher and it's exiting this pattern. Now, how does it fail? It would fail if it takes this lower line out. You can see 2 times it's hit, and it's hit it perfectly. So any break of that line is a warning sign. But if it gets below this 0.76, then this would turn into a topping pattern. So a failed triangular constriction can become a double top, as it were, for those whose traditional technical analysis, you know about that. But for the moment, that's looking more constricted and ready to break out. So that's why I'd say either wait for the breakout, or if you're being forced to trade it now, I think it's on the buy camp.
Yeah, for me, it's a buy as well. I like this one a lot. Think of Ultra as like the Steam of crypto gaming. And so they're a platform that's going to be like Steam and host a lot of crypto games and make it very cheap for game producers and blockchain games to be able to release through their platform, much as Steam does. But Steam charges a lot. In fact, they charge a whole lot, and that creates an opportunity for competition to come in, especially because Steam is disallowing blockchain games from their platform. Well, that is very good for Ultra. And I've been a big fan of this and covered it a lot. It's near that lower trend line that Paul showed, and that's when I like to buy on stuff that I'm bullish on. In fact, I just picked up some more of this myself, I think a week ago. So I'm very bullish, even at this price. I mean, it touched down at the 90 cents. It's at $1.03. It's pretty close to that lower line. And the worry is always that it breaks through that lower line. I would say probabilities are that it breaks out to the upside, but that's what investing is that you're taking risks that you like. And this is a risk that I like.
Great. Yeah. So there's a very good support around 0.69, around 0.69 to 0.72. So there's a lot of support around there. So that's why that should hold if it does indeed come back down. But if it breaks that, obviously, then it's going to drop a bit more, because that shouldn't really break. But it's a really, really good support area, because tons of resistance, and it acted as support as well. So it's worth pointing that out. But yeah, that's really interesting. So should we look at the next one? I think that's it's
VRA.
VRA. Yeah. So just check this is the right one.
Veracity.
Veracity. Okay. I think that I'm pretty sure that's what.
No, I think that one's Vera.
Okay.
Which probably also use the ticker symbol VRA.
Oh yeah. Looks a little bit similar, but
it did.
Yeah. So what have we got going on here? Well, there is a head and shoulders pattern here, which it's moving down from. It obviously attempted to break into this high, which failed, and we are in a holding pattern again. It's I know it's something that we're seeing across quite a lot of markets at the moment, but at least this is elevated. At least this is, it's trading in this big upward trend that I think is the dominant element of this chart, and therefore I would look for that to break out to the upside. Now it could be potentially forming a base here, an inverse head and shoulders, a bit like Polkadot. So there's a left shoulder, there's a head, potentially there's a right shoulder. So it needs to hold in around 0.019. So it needs to hold this level, because if it goes any lower and takes out this point at 0.015, then it negates this as a base. And then it's going to drop down to the next support, which would be all the way down here. So I think that would have to be a wait for me, because it's at the moment it's too sideways. Now, where I would be more comfortable buying it is if it actually shows a bit of strength and moves upwards a little bit through this 0.034 level. So if it can take that out, I'd feel a bit better about it negating this head and shoulders top, also taking this base out as well, this good resistance that's up here. But I do like the chart overall, because it's still bullish. It's not like it's languishing down at lows or actually trending down. It looks like it's correcting. So I'd be keen to follow that quite closely in the coming weeks.
Yeah, this is another one that I like. I added a lot to my position in the last few weeks. Essentially, this is the future of esports. If you go to their website, and let me share, there we go. All-in-one wallet for esports, NFTs, and digital. I don't know how to go back to what I was reading. It just kind of rotates between these. Very good looking website that makes just a little bit of difference. But essentially, if you think about how much the world of sports is going to esports and how big that will likely be in the future, and they're really well positioned, especially to own the blockchain gaming side of that. I just like their positioning. I think a lot of money will continue to come into blockchain gaming over traditional gaming, in that in the future, blockchain gaming will totally dominate gaming. So they're positioned very well, and I like it. I like that it's near the lower side of that trend line. That's why I added a bunch to my position. That's when I'd like to add a bunch to my position. And so I hold, recently added a bunch more to this. And I had already added some in earlier, just added to that position.
Great. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting chart, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
it's and is their market cap relatively low because it's trading just a couple of cents here?
Yeah, their market cap's at 93 million.
Hmm.
Their total circulating supply, only 1/4 of their tokens are in circulation. Always a little bit of a concern. There are ways to check and see kind of what the token breakdown is. Are those continuing to vest to pre-sale investors? Looks like they've now been launched for over a year, and a lot of times the pre-sale tokens that are sold to investors in the early days pre-sale, they have a vesting schedule that they get unlocked. Usually that happened a lot when this came out over the first 12 months. And if so, a lot of those pre-sale tokens are already out there in other hands. Some of them have been sold, some continue to be held on to. And so the concern is that often creates price pressure pushing down is those vest. If the people that bought them are short-term traders, usually they bought them at a very cheap price, and so they just sell them and sell them and sell them as they get them. And that puts downward pressure on it. But in the larger picture, I see a W, kind of an awkward W. You would like to see a bigger left side, but the token had just come out. We saw it pump tremendously as Facebook made their metaverse announcement. A lot of people were thinking about metaverses and digital gaming and everything, and it pumped tremendously with that. It's since corrected. I like to buy during these big corrections, and that's a big correction. So from the top at 8.5 cents, it's now trading at 2 cents. So that is a significant correction, a 75% correction. And then that's when I like to buy on these projects, not when they're going crazy.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. So we still have to get that t-shirt, buy when it's boring. So.
I know, right? That'd be some fun merchandise and just for the community, right? I like that saying. It helps me remember the focus because I'm human too. We all have emotions. As an investor, you just learn to kind of set those emotions to the side, sometimes listen to them, but often do the opposite of what they're telling you to do. And so, the term that I coined is buy when it's boring.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like it.
Basically when the price action is boring, like this on Drive. Let me share my screen. This is very, very boring on Drive, right? A lot of this trading sideways. And see, in the past, it's had these big spikes. And those are great times to be taking some profits. And this is when I like to really accumulate.
Yeah, so Drive is very interesting, actually. I don't know if it's one that you've featured before. I don't think I remember it, but we look at so many, it's difficult to keep track, actually. But the chart. I don't normally like to ignore price action, but I'm going to say that this spike is perhaps a price that it didn't trade at. Now, I could be wrong, so I'm not going to. I don't like to ignore price action, but what I'm seeing is obviously we've got this downward trend, but we've got this left shoulder, this head that's coming in here, and it's now in this right shoulder. So that would suggest that this is a base, and it's at the sort of initial phase of the base, or the initial phase of the completion of the base. So what it needs to do is trade up to 0.007, take that out, and then it would complete the base, and then that would be the start of a new trend. So an inverse head and shoulders pattern is what was called a reversal pattern, and it means that the trend, which we're looking at here, is now over, and the market should be going in the opposite direction. So if it can take this neckline out, it will complete the pattern, but it's looking really nice. What I look for is a certain amount of symmetry. So what happens on the left mirrors on the right. Obviously not exactly, but in timing, it tends to work. And if the right shoulder, this area here, can be smaller than the left, that can be a really good sign, because it shows that investors are buying in, not waiting for a breakout. There's a certain amount of positivity if that happens. So where it negates, well, it hasn't completed yet, so it can't negate, but where it would be very unlikely to be a head and shoulders reversal would be below 0.00408 if you want all the digits, and that's just this support here. So if it comes back below here, it would break the symmetry, and therefore it wouldn't be an inverse head and shoulders. So I'd be tempted to buy here, and I know that's a little bit early, but I like to buy where I know I can get out, and I would be getting out if it took this 0.004 area out. So as long as that holds, I'd be staying in the market. So it's a very interesting chart.
Yeah, I like this one as well. For me, it's a buy, and I'm just making a note to add to my position on it. Just a sec. I have a lot of this already, and obviously very, very bullish on it, and going to add to my position. So for me, it's a buy. I like this price, and I'm okay to be patient, wait for this. I did request to see if Firdosh, this CEO, will come on again. She did an interview with us about 7 months ago when the project was first launching. Would love to have her on and just share some updates. Essentially, they're like a decentralized Uber. They launched in India, has spread to other countries, and they bring a lot of savings to riders as well as higher pay to the drivers, using blockchain tech and just technology in general to reduce those costs without being a publicly traded company and having to squeeze those margins, because there's some competitors like Uber and Lyft that have been pushing down what the drivers make while increasing rates. As publicly traded companies, I think they both went public, right? And so now they have obligations to their shareholders, and because there isn't a lot of competition there, I think that they've increased their rates and decreased what the drivers are making to where it doesn't make sense to the drivers as much. And so that created an opening for Drive to come in and offer drivers more, and still, because technology removes a lot of their overhead, they can still be profitable while making it cheaper for riders as well as more lucrative for drivers to switch over.
Yeah, now I remember you talking about them, and I think you were talking about buying it when the chart was indeed looking very boring, and I seem to remember me saying I think I'd have to wait because it was going down in this very strong downward trend, which is part of the discipline of technical analysis. But it's why it's so valuable to have some background, because if you know it's a good project, then it makes these lows look far more attractive. And essentially what I'm witnessing when I look at technicals is people like you saying, well, this is way too cheap, I'm going to step in. So I can see that there are other people doing that, and that's ultimately what creates a base. And as the market moves up, it draws in more buyers, and that's where the trend forms. So yeah, very interesting story, very interesting chart.
And
So
if it just goes to its previous highs of like November, then it's a 20x from here. So in other words, it's like 95% down. Wow. So I'd like that kind of bet. As anything, it could go to zero. They could go bankrupt. Maybe, they aren't just in India now. They're in a lot of countries. So say one country shuts them down. Say if all the countries shut them down, well, then that would ruin the project and the token would go to zero, which is always a risk that could happen. But it's not very likely to happen. And so I'm just making strategic bets, right? And if it even just goes to its previous highs, that's a 20x return. Oh boy, where else is that kind of return even possible outside of crypto? Stocks, yes. Penny stocks, yes. I just like the risk to return ratio as well as the fundamental analysis you can do here. And then we bring on an expert like Paul to give you some read on just price analysis and what he's reading in the price. I hope that's why you subscribe to this channel, so you can get some good information here so that you can make your own decisions on what you like.
Great stuff. So I think the next one is the Freeway token.
Yes. And we
Yes.
just did a video on this that yesterday, so you'll be able to check it out if you haven't already and see more detailed information on exactly what Freeway token is, why I'm bullish on it, why I hold a lot of this myself, and how I use Freeway token to get 43% returns on Bitcoin. So check that out if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'm going to be checking that out because that sounds really interesting. So this is it's in a range, but it's looking bullish to me, and the reason why it's looking bullish is because it keeps pressing this top edge of what looks like to be a potential triangular constriction. So where the market respects levels, I really like that, so I can see it's trading really nicely from a technical point of view. So it's been range bound, it's been constricting, but at some point it's not going to last forever. That it has to break out at some point. Now I know we can't say exactly when that will be. It might come back down again before it then breaks out again. But we've had 1, 2, 3, and it's going for another fourth go knocking on this line. And because the broader trend is bullish, the bias will be to the upside. So I would say that I should really wait for it to break that line before I say buy. But again, given a choice, if I had to make a decision here and it had to be either, I had to either buy it or sell it, I would be on the side of buying it. So, if you wanted to be a bit more cautious, waiting would be probably better because that's the discipline of technical analysis. But you can also trade it in the way that you want to trade it. So for me, I kind of like buying ahead of a line and then watching it break. But being cautious means that, you should really wait for it to break. But everybody trades the way they want to trade. So I'm not going to sort of tell people what to do. It's just, it's how I like to do it. So very interesting setup. I would expect this line to be broken at some point in the next few weeks, and ultimately could get drawn into this high. So that's where we want it to go.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. So I think there's some fundamental things that are going to drive it. But with where you showed it on the charts, the exact price it's at, for me, it's a wait right there, even though I'm very bullish on this in the long term. And it's because I like to buy things cheap. Now, if it breaks through that, then I'm going to add even more to my position. But it's so close to that line, I'm just going to sit and wait and hope that it breaks down from there. Now, why in the world would I hope that it breaks down from there? So I can add even more to my position because I'm holding this for a longer term, not looking to quick flip it when it 2x's. I'm hoping for much, much higher than a 2x on this. And so I'm hoping that it breaks down so I can add even more, even though I hold maybe $100,000 worth of it already. I would like to hold even more. And let me share with you, I'm going to share my screen. And this is an unofficial site called freewaystats.com. And you can see, now go to the video and watch yesterday's video. It will give you a lot more in detail. But we are starting to see a lot of people come into their platform. So far, there's 18,000 total registered users. And that's big. And these are active users of 3,334. I think this is outside the US and this is inside the US. They have a site for outside the US because compliance is different, and then one for inside the US. If you use our referral link below, it'll take you, and then it'll help you figure out whether you're in the US or outside the US. So you just have to use that one link, and then it'll let you go to the site that's right for you. Now, what I like is a huge percentage of their tokens that's out there in their circulating supply are staked on the platform. So people are utilizing the token to stake on the platform. But by staking the token, you can get some really good returns for it. And then they have these superchargers where you can get, say, 43% returns on your USD or on Bitcoin. And so this is the percentage of funds that are getting, or the assets under management that are going into their platform. And we're seeing this parabolic curve of usage of their actual platform. And so as more funds come into this, the more pressure it's going to put on people to buy the token. And that's going to drive the price up, especially since such a high percent of the token is already being staked. And so people will realize how small that supply is, and it'll go crazy. And I remember when this happened with Celsius token, and Celsius token was trading between 3 to 7 cents, and all of a sudden it went to 30 to 50 cents, and then it went to $3 to $7. No, I didn't pay attention to it. I really liked what they were making. Their platform came out. I tested out their platform. It's great. I still didn't buy any of their token. And then it went to 50 cents. It retraced to about 35 cents. And I loaded up during that retrace. And that was nice because it then went to $5 to $7. But I kicked myself because instead of the 10 to 15x gains I made, I could have made 100 to 150x gains. And I knew that the platform was going to do well and their token would do well. And I just didn't take action. So yeah, take a look at the audience, take a look at this video from yesterday if you haven't already, see if it makes sense to you. I like a lot of factors about it, and I lay those out for you.
Brilliant. I'd be checking that out for sure. So I think the last one we've got here is the Spores network.
Yes.
SPO. So if you just check that's correct, which I think it is.
That looks probably right.
Hang on a sec. Has that updated? Actually, that hasn't, has it? Let me just double check that.
Updating in April.
Yeah. So I think that's the one I chose. Yeah, that is the one I chose. Wonder why it's doing that. SPO.
It's not that. It's not Sport and Leisure's.
No, it's this one.
Network, but yeah, you might have to look at it on CoinGecko, or that might show a CoinMarketCap.
Yeah, let's try it here. Okay.
That also stopped being updated back in April.
Actually, I think that's
20th of April.
Yeah, I think we got it. Yeah, I think that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, so the story here is really one of, well, it's definitely boring in terms of it's been going sideways to down. So this main trend is still negative. I'd have to wait for sure on this because I can't justify buying something until it's showing at least the emergence of a reversal pattern or some strength. Now, it did show that here, which would have been enough for a position when it took this resistance out 0.003, and there was a lot of volume behind it as well, but it wasn't sustained. So there was no follow through. So we would have to go from, neutral here to bullish back to neutral. It's sitting on these lows as well, which isn't such a good sign because it's sort of leaning on this prior support. And what I'd like to see when the market gets cheap like this, it hits it and then bounces up to show us that there's good interest to buy it. If it just hangs around the low, it makes me concerned that it's actually going to break it and continue this downward trend, which has been fairly strong. So for me, it'd have to be a wait. It needs to do a lot more work before I can turn bullish. And if it's an interesting project, there may be a good opportunity somewhere along the lines, but at the moment it's not for me.
Yeah, I purchased a lot of this and I have it staking, earning some really good yields. There's a place you can stake it. At these prices, I'm going to wait, hoping it gets even cheaper. And I know that seems so contrary. I have such a large position. Why would I want it to get cheaper? Because I want to buy more. So fundamentally, we've had the team on a couple times. I like the team. I like where they're going. They're heavily involved in the blockchain gaming side as well as the NFTs. They have great connections. And I think a lot of what they're working on, we haven't seen rolled out yet. And that's okay. I'm patient like that. I buy and then I wait till the vision starts to become realized. I was an early investor in Axie Infinity. It felt like this for the first 1.5 to 2 years of Axie Infinity's work that, they kept promising these things and there wasn't a lot that you could see actually happening. And then all of a sudden their vision started to be realized and they really pushed blockchain gaming forward. And all of a sudden, the price on everything pumped tremendously. So with Spores, I'm patient and wait. No, it's a risk. Sometimes they don't work out. Often they do, the ones that I take, but they don't always. And so for me, I like this one. At these prices, it's a wait just to see if I can buy more cheaper.
Fantastic.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Paul. And thank you, the audience, for joining us. If you haven't already, consider becoming a Rainmaker just by liking this video and subscribing with that all notification bell enabled. As well as you can join our Telegram chat where there's a lot of great audience members that frequently are in there. I'm frequently in there and have great discussions going. So join us. Remember, at the end of the day, no rain, no gain.
Into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was taught to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Make the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.